Today I'd like to consider some different aspects of verbal and nonverbal communication. In face-to-face interactions, we blend verbal and nonverbal communication to create our messages. Evidence shows that we do this to help us think and to remember, both for ourselves and for our listeners. First, it is helpful to investigate some ways that verbal and nonverbal communication interact. First, nonverbal communication can be used to accent. That would be to emphasize part of the verbal phrase. Maybe you would raise your voice, "Hey, sit down!" Or you would look at someone lovingly. "I really am glad that you're here." Second is to compliment. This could be to add nuances not communicated in the verbal message, such as smiling when you're telling a funny story, or looking stern if someone hasn't done something the way you want it. Nonverbal communication can be also used to contradict what you're saying. This would be like deliberately winking to tell someone that you're lying. "No, I didn't see you take a cookie out of the jar." It can also be used to take control of the message that you're sending. Maybe you would put up your hand to indicate that you'd like to speak. Or you could put up your hand to indicate that you're not ready yet to yield the floor. "I still would like to answer that question." You can also use it to repeat what you're saying, or to restate, maybe with a questioning look. "Are you sure?" Or with a nod of the head. "I understand what you're saying there." And sometimes it can be used as a substitute, such as signaling. We're going to look at two major ways that verbal and nonverbal communication interact. First, to identify that meaning is an active process created in cooperation between the speaker and the listener. Understanding these aspects will help you to maximize your own verbal and nonverbal communication potential. You'll be in a better place to control and construct messages when you understand how interpersonal messages work. Meanings are people. Meaning depends not only on the message, but on the interaction of the message and the receiver's own thoughts and feelings. You don't receive meaning, you create it. Take, for example, this scale from good to bad, and then the words that are listed below. If you were to take these words and put them on the scale, you would probably end up with a different variety in a different order than someone else. This is a good way to think about the fact that the way that you value something is going to be different than someone else. So you will need to understand your audience or to be able to construct your message in a way that clearly identifies the meaning that you're hoping to convey. But meanings are more than just words and gestures. When you want to communicate, you do so with relatively few symbols. The meanings you seek to communicate are much more than the words and even the nonverbal aspects that you add to them. You can never fully know what another person is thinking, and so failing to fully comprehend and understand isn't uncommon. Meanings are unique. No two people ever derive the same meanings from a particular phrase, and even you will change from day to day on how you feel about a certain phrase. Take "I love you" for example. Say yesterday you heard it from someone that you were really hoping to, and then it meant one thing. But then today you found out that someone said "I love you" to 5 other people. It's going to mean something completely different to you now. Meanings are context-based. The same words and behaviors may have different meanings in different times and places, and when you take them away from their context, you can never fully understand what was intended. Take, for example, the phrase, "How are you?" When you just say this to a friend, it can be casual. But if you're in this situation when you're in a hospital and you ask someone how they are, you're probably actually indicating, "How are you feeling? Are you better?" This is especially true in different cultural contexts. Meanings are packaged. Sounds and gestures usually work together to convey the same meaning, but sometimes they contradict. You need to look at the entire package in order to make sure that you're getting the right meaning from what is being said and shown. Messages are rule-governed. We learn the rules of communication from observing the adult community around us. For example, we'll learn how to best express sympathy, or when touch is okay and when it's not. This is also culturally dependent. In some cultures, direct eye contact or specific hand gestures are deemed inappropriate. Messages vary in abstraction. Considering this list, there are some terms that are more general and evoke a variety of options, and there are some that are more specific. Take the term entertainment, for example. For one person, that might be a cross-country ski race. For another person, that might be a rock concert. Effective verbal messages often include a variety of words that range in abstractions, but generally, using the most specific words possible is going to get you the best result. Instead of just saying, I live on Elm Street, you'd want to say, I live the third house down, the one with the pink shutters. The more information you can give someone, the more likely you are to convey the meaning that you're hoping to. Messages vary in politeness. Politeness is universally desired in all cultures, but it depends on how that's achieved. Studies show that politeness sort of follows an arch. On the bottom, in the least polite situations, would be a stranger, whereas when you curve up, this comes to friends. And then you sort of slide back down to people that you're most intimate with, whereas you might not be as polite all of the time, and that might be okay sometimes. Say, when you're not so nice to your mom, someone who's pretty close to you. Messages vary in inclusion. Some messages include all people. Some messages intentionally leave out folks, and some leave out entire cultural groups altogether. You need to be wary when you take terms that are common for your cultural group and try to apply them universally. Take the term church, for example. This may mean something for a lot of people, but we can't use it to describe an aspect of all religions. In order to work towards inclusion, we need to be aware of the types of terms that we use and the people that can understand them. So maybe when you're in a situation with someone who's unfamiliar with a particular term or the situation that's going on, it's helpful to give a little bit more information. Say, Jack is Jen's brother, that kind of thing. Messages vary in directness. An example of an indirect message would be, would you like to watch Grey's Anatomy? A more direct approach would be, I'd like to watch Grey's Anatomy. Or the indirect option of, isn't it chilly? And the more direct alternative, Joe, could you please close the window? Indirect messages allow you to express a desire without insulting or offending anyone. A disadvantage to indirect messages is when we say something that we actually have really strong feelings about in a way that doesn't overtly share those feelings, such as, would you like to go to the beach this weekend? And then to have someone respond with, actually, I'd like to go to the movies. But really, what you were thinking was, I just bought a new bathing suit, and this is probably the last time that I would be able to wear it this summer, and I really want to go to the beach with you, and it would be really fun. So maybe you should have just said that. Messages may vary in assertiveness. Assertive behavior enables you to act in your own best interests without denying or infringing upon the rights of others. Assertive people generally have 4 specific characteristics. They have frank and open expression of their feelings. They readily volunteer opinions and beliefs. They stand up and argue for their rights. And they make up their minds based on evidence and argument. Assertive people are generally more open, less anxious, more conscientious, and less likely to be intimidated or easily persuaded. But again, sometimes this depends on culture, and sometimes people mistake assertiveness for aggression. Assertive people, being more calm but still putting their feelings forward, might use more I comments. I really feel angry when you do this. Whereas an aggressive person might say, you make me feel angry. Instead, assertive people put themselves first and try to explain things in a delicate but direct way. So to sum it all up, nonverbal communication can accent, complement, contradict, control, repeat, or substitute for verbal communication. Messages are in people, more than words and gestures, and are unique and are context-based. Verbal and nonverbal messages are packaged, rule-governed, and vary in abstraction, politeness, inclusion, and assertiveness. The more you are aware and intentional about these things in constructing and receiving messages, the stronger your communication will be. This will benefit you in your relationships not only with your family, friends, co-workers, and even strangers.